Joining us is also Dr. John Harrison. He is a Middle East expert. We also have Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar joining us on this broadcast. But first up, let's set it up for our viewers as to what we'll be talking about now. As this conflict clearly escalated, Iran exclusively opened its airspace for India to evacuate its nationals amidst its conflict. And as the US bombed Iran's key nuclear facilities, India was among the first nations that Tehran called. India and Iran share a millennia-long history of interactions, which is marked by deep cultural and civilizational ties. And this relationship, remember, has evolved significantly over the years, with both nations forging strong diplomatic, economic, and strategic partnerships. So let me give you a context of their relationship, which is certainly playing out at multiple levels. The diplomatic relations, remember, were formally established in 1950. And over the decades, high-level exchanges and agreements have further solidified this bond. In fact, one of the notable milestones has been Tehran Declaration in 2001 and the New Delhi Declaration in 2003. Economically, Iran has been a crucial partner for India, and Iran was once the second largest supplier of crude oil to India, providing over 425,000 barrels of oil per day. And despite the imposition of sanctions, India has continued to engage with Iran, particularly in the development of the Chabahar port. Looking at the economic ties, let's look at it, ladies and gentlemen. This port, the Chabahar port, is vital for India's connectivity plans, and it offers an alternative route to Afghanistan and Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan. The Chabahar port project is a cornerstone of India-Iran relations. In fact, it not only enhances trade, but it also serves as a counterweight to China's Belt and Road Initiative and Pakistan's Gwadar port. In May 2024, India signed a 10-year contract for the operation of the Chabahar port, underscoring its strategic importance. In May 2025, this is another very important aspect of the two countries' relationship, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited New Delhi, and that meeting resulted in signing of 3 key cooperation agreements. These agreements focus on customs cooperation and health standards to food and pharmaceuticals, highlighting the growing partnership between the two nations. India has vital stakes in Iran, particularly in the energy sector and connectivity initiatives. I've spoken about Chabahar port, how critical it is in India's geopolitical influence in Central Asia and its efforts to counterbalance China's growing presence in the region. Is this the reason then that India is continuing to do a tightrope walk? Dr. Harrison, how are you looking at India's stand so far?
Thank you for having me, Marya. I think it's very typical of how India has approached things for decades. That the Indian government has tried not to be tied down with formal alliances and has tried to be open to all sides in any issue. Certainly, there are very, very, very rational geopolitical reasons for that, but I think it's also just a core of India's view of its place in the world, that it doesn't have permanent friends or permanent enemies. It has permanent interests, and it has a view of how the world should be, and that India is going to try its best to make sure that it positions itself well to protect its own interests and to advance its view of what the international community should look like. Many nations do that. I think India has a very unique position, and it has been playing that role for many decades, and it is playing that role very well.
Mr. Sajjanhar, the role of Chabahar port is very, it has often been described as the cornerstone of India-Iran ties. It becomes particularly important right now because of India hoping that it will be able to create a counterweight to the BRI. How much of that will ensure that India continues to take the stand that this is not an era of war, as Prime Minister Modi has famously said? It could be a long drawn conflict, and India doesn't want to get drawn in this conflict.
Yeah, no, definitely. India does not want to get drawn into this conflict. India is, not an immediate neighbor as far as the area is concerned. India has excellent relations with Iran. India has excellent relations with Israel. And both of them are strategic partners. India stopped importing oil from Iran under US pressure from 2019 onwards. But Chabahar port, as you mentioned, it was kept out of the sanctions. During President Trump's first tenure, we were able to make some progress going forward, import some cranes and some other improve infrastructure at the Shahid Beheshti first terminal. Now, India definitely wants to work on this, but the way I look at it, Marya, is that under the circumstances, it doesn't look very promising, because even the private parties are, would not really be very comfortable coming to that port, because there would be the threat of secondary sanctions from the United States. So I think we are not really looking at Chabahar and the INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor, acting as a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative and to the Gwadar port. I think we are interested really in terms of leveraging and exploiting the strengths and the connectivity that this can offer to India, as you said, in reaching to Afghanistan, although we do not have diplomatic relations with the Taliban dispensation, but with Central Asia, and also moving forward onwards to Russia and even to Europe, because Armenia has offered itself as a conduit for the INSTC and going forward. So I think there are very many positives, and we will try to do whatever is possible. Under the circumstances, it doesn't seem very promising. But of course, we have signed a 10-year contract for managing the Shahid Beheshti terminal, and we'll take it forward as it comes.
Dr. Harrison, your thought, particularly after the escalation which has happened after US bombed Iran?
I think this is hopefully more than just about Iran's nuclear program, which is very important. Right? And I think, as the international community has rightfully said, there is no weapons program, at least that anybody is aware of. But Iran is certainly sort of hinting at it would like to get one. So the actions were taken sort of in that light. But I think the bigger question is what the ambassador has said, is that you've got Iran is a very critical node point in geopolitics. And I think if the international community, or at least the United States, can begin to think about Iran in that light, that changes how the United States will approach the country. It's very difficult to do that at the moment. And certainly removing any possibility of a nuclear program, I think, changes that dynamic very much. And many people have forgotten that prior to 1979, the U.S. and Iran were very close. So that while there's a recent history of tensions, there's not a deep historical tradition of tensions. So that I think there are a lot of opportunities that Iran also itself has to take positive steps towards potentially grasping. And the current regime does not seem to be able to do that.
All right. Let me give the last word to Ashok Sajjanhar. Ambassador, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, I think this is, if Iran had wanted to strike against U.S. military assets in the region, or U.S. Soldiers, defense personnel who are posted, it would have done so far. I think it's really looking for an off-ramp. It has very few options. We see that none of the regional countries has come to its, to help out, to support it. Even its partners like Russia and China, Russia is occupied in its own affairs with Ukraine. China is far away. So I think it is really looking for something that will, it doesn't want to take on America as it is, because Mr. Trump has informed that if there is any retaliation, the response is going to be very brutal. So Iran, I think, is looking for a way out, which in this conversation between Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin, they will be able to come to some agreement, because Iran cannot continue. It has some ballistic missiles, but they will end. It cannot continue fighting.
All right, Ambassador Sajjanhar and Dr. Harrison, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.